Welcome back to the podcast. This is Layla Rose. Today we are discussing emotional mastery and how to escape hell on earth. All right. So I never know where to start. I feel like there's so much information I want to share. Okay. So I'm going to start with a little story time and then we can get into the practical aspect of it. All right. So to fully understand what the matrix is, all right, because a lot of times, people are confused. They're like, I want to escape the matrix. Well, escaping the matrix would mean that you would live off grid. Matrix means mother, and so the current matrix that we live in is based on Saturn, all right. So when it comes to any form of governmental paperwork or practices, you're going to notice these Saturnian symbols. A lot of times people get confused and they're like, oh, we live in a satanic society. It's not satanic, it's Saturnian. But Saturn, when it comes to tarot, for example, Saturn is sometimes connected to Satan, because they're actually similar words, which is also connected to the zodiac sign Capricorn, all right? So a Capricorn, for example, that is unevolved or unconscious is a very, very bad person, right? Like, and I'm not being condescending, I'm just stating facts. If you know any Capricorns that work in corporate America, you know that these people have absolutely no emotions, all right? No emotional attachment to humans, no to anything, right? Everything is a business. They're greedy AF. They're extremely greedy. They're ruthless. Actually, one of the richest men in the world is a Capricorn. Jeff Bezos. Oh my God. So, yeah. Capricorns that are unevolved, once again, okay, Capricorns that are unevolved can be compared to Satan, because they don't care about people, they don't care about the planet, they exploit every single person they meet in their life. If they can sell their mother and make money out of it, they're gonna do it. Like, they just don't care, All right, so coming back to Saturn, because Saturn is the planet connected to Capricorn. When it comes to Saturn, it's a feminine energy, all right? That's why matrix, the word matrix means mother. So Saturn is a feminine energy that is connected to the color dark blue. So that's why there's a lot of uniforms. Anything that is connected, again, to the government has Saturnian symbols. So the dark blue, there's a lot of examples, police officers, firefighters, there's just a lot of them in the military. Like, you can see those symbols everywhere. So the society is based on the Saturnian energy. The reason why it's been based on the Saturnian energy is because it's an energy that is completely unemotional. There's zero emotions when it comes to Saturn, because Saturn is the planet of discipline and karma. So when it comes to the government, all the emotional aspect of it, and I'm not saying that's good or bad, I'm just stating facts. This is how they've built society. So for example, when we look at the legal system, for example, I think there's only 3 countries in the world where emotional abuse is illegal. Like, emotions are not even counted as something that's important, which is very ironic, if I can give my opinion here, because humans are emotional beings, right? Our bodies are like 70% water, and the moon has a lot of impact on our emotions. Just look at children, for example. Children are super emotional. So what happens is that the reason why they put children so young now into school is that they just want to make sure that they can program them early on with this Saturnian energy. And the Saturnian energy is all about, once again, discipline and karma action, right? So it's very strict. So that's why a lot of school systems are very similar to prisons and corporate America. If you haven't noticed, that's where a lot of people either end. It's you either end in prison or in corporate America, which are both the same, and school prepares you for that, all right? So, with that being said, when we don't know this type of information, what happens is that we might feel like we're losing control of our reality. Okay, so when we don't have information about, the nervous system and astrology, numerology, when we're just simply unconscious, right? We just, we go to school and then we get a job and we go to our 9 to 5. What happens is that most people just suppress their emotions because they don't know how to deal with them. They don't know how to communicate within a relationship, all right? So, and I'm going to take men as an example because men are more, their brain is just more rational than women, just in general. Men are really good sometimes at building businesses or, having these, business partnerships and events. But when it comes to their wives or their children, they are absolutely clueless on how to operate. And they get very defensive anyway if you're trying to have an emotional conversation or just a conversation about your emotions, They're going to be very confused about what you're talking about. So that's what happens in our society right now. And this is why the suicide rate is going up, and it's usually men for the most part as well. 70% of our society is on medication. There's a lot of addictions. People are usually high functional addicts, so they numb their emotions or they self-regulate with substances, but they're still able to go to work and perform. So people just don't know that they have these addictions. So this is the shadow aspect of having a Saturnian society. And what happens with that is, at some point, for a lot of people, it creates something called hell on earth. The more you push down those emotions and you suppress them, the more your body is going to be speaking to you through illnesses. And unfortunately, a lot of people are ignorant about that process, or it's triggering, because a lot of times I've noticed, when people talk about this online, they get bashed by other people, and they're like, how can you blame people for illnesses? And they just don't understand. So it's really hard to have this type of conversation. But obviously a lot of doctors have been talking about this. And so what I noticed, and I wanted to start with that story time, but I'm going to share it now. So, my sun sign is Cancer, right? And my Venus is in Cancer as well. So I'm since I was a kid, very emotional, right? I feel people's suppressed emotions. That's how sensitive I am. And so that's actually the main reason why I live isolated, because I can't deal with people most of the times. But what I noticed is that my life was hell on earth up until the time I learned to self-regulate my nervous system. And so I've been doing all these, actually all the things that I've been talking about are things that I've been through. So that's why I know what it feels like. I know the pain. So breath work, grounding exercises, subconscious reprogramming, those are all the things you can do to really remove this addiction to suffering, because that's what it is. It's a subconscious addiction to suffering. And I know it doesn't make sense to say this out loud, because you're like, why would I want to make myself suffer? Why would I want to make myself go through poverty? Why would I want to go through this horrible romantic relationship and torture myself? That doesn't make sense. Obviously, it's not a conscious process. We're just reliving Like, especially if you've been through some sort of trauma as a kid, what happens is that up until the point you let go and you do alchemy of those emotions, you're just going to recreate those karmic loops, karmic patterns, and you're going to relive your childhood trauma over and over and over and over up until you decide that it's over, it's done. Like, we're not going to do this anymore, you know? And unfortunately, that's usually the breaking point that a lot of people, you know, have, and they decide to take their life because they cannot deal with the emotional pain anymore. And sometimes there isn't any amount of drugs and substances that can, you know, it just always comes back anyway, right? And so personally, I've experienced, you know, 3 situations where I tried to take my life, and I was like a teenager. And that's the process that was happening to me. Like, the emotional pain was unbearable, you know? And I didn't have any mentors, guides, like no one. I mean, I had spiritual guides, but I didn't know I could talk to them. And so, yeah, so I would just, you know, obviously wake up the next day and be all fucked up. And I would start again. But yeah, so grounding the nervous system, working with the body, doing some somatic exercises, and doing alchemy, because what we want to do is we want to clear, you know, whatever trauma that has been, you know, staying within our bodies, and then we want to focus on what we want to create. We want to focus on, you know, the future, because that's another thing, you know, when we're constantly focused on the past, and that's something that you're going to notice, that's something that people do on dates, for example. They subconsciously, for example, haven't let go of an ex, okay? Let's say someone did them, you know, very dirty and something bad happened. Like, it's so repelling, and I'm not saying that like in a condescending way. I'm just saying, like, when you go on a date and you're having fun and you're having this like really lighthearted conversation, and then someone just like trauma dumps on you, they're like, yeah, my ex took my money and she did this and that. Like, it is so repelling. It is, I don't know how to explain it, especially in that context. Like, I get it, like, we all been through shit, like, we've all been betrayed and stuff, but like, when you go on a date, you want to be focused on the next step, like the future. Like, what do you want to create with, you know, potentially that person in front of you? But obviously, like, you don't want to put that pressure on that person, but like, what do you want to create in the future? You know, if I'm on a date and I say something, you know, and I'm being very clear, I'm like, this is the type of, you know, trip I would do with my husband, you know, in the future. All right. So I focus on that. I don't focus on what my ex did, you know, 3 years ago, you know, like, this is it. I don't know. It's just, it's very repelling. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. Like, it's all something we've done at some point, and it's fine as long as we just grow and we level up and we just move on to that next level. But yeah, this is basically the whole process of escaping hell on earth and creating heaven on earth at some point, because if you keep on focusing on what you want, you're giving energy to that. You're amplifying that. You're giving your attention and your power to that vision of success, you know, and so yeah, that's really the key here. Obviously, you have to go through the whole shadow work alchemy process, but on the other side, you know, you have your heaven on earth, and that's how we're able to succeed in, you know, whatever aspect, you know, in our lives. And when it comes to society, you know, with the research that I've been doing, obviously the Saturnian society is something that's very recent. It's not something that used to be in ancient cultures. Actually, in ancient cultures, you're gonna notice they used to work with the lunar calendar, which is the moon, and moon is connected to emotions. So it was a combination actually between a lunar calendar and a solar calendar. So soul, right, the sun. That's why in the Bible, you know, there's all this, you know, promotion of the sun, but that's what it is. The sun is connected to the soul. And so yeah, it was a combination of both solar and lunar. You can do whatever you want with that information. You can start working with that. I personally love to work with the moon, but also I like to balance it with the energies of Jupiter as well, especially for business. Yeah, you can also work with the sun as well, especially if you're a man, like if you're masculine, the sun is very masculine as well. All right, so that's it for today's episode. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you tomorrow for our next podcast. Bye.